Hello everyone, this is Coach Oliver once again. It's the rest day of the FIDE Grand Prix 2022 in Berlin. So today we will feature the other tournament online, alright, the Meltwater Champions Chess Tour Charity Cup. Magnus won the tournament, beating Duda in the finals. Right, it was a close finals. Yesterday Magnus won the match, but Duda in the second match got his revenge, so it went into the tiebreaks. And Magnus was superior in the tiebreaks, in the blitz tiebreak. Alright, in the first game, Magnus showed his other side, playing strategically. So the strategic side of Magnus in the first game, he was white, d4, knight f3, 5, g3, c5, some Catalan type of setup. Bishop g2, e6, castles, knight c6, e3, b6. Alright, Magnus went for c4. Okay, the central break with king on e8. The central break is important because the king is not castled yet. Takes, knight takes d4, takes, bishop e7, knight c3, castles, takes on d5, takes, series of exchanges, takes on d5, bishop f4. Alright, white now has this rook c1 and control of c7 coming up. Bishop e6, queen a4. Alright, idea would be rook c1, the rook cannot go c8, because queen will take on a7. So Duda played queen e8 to exchange queen to release the pressure on the a file. Magnus went to a6, declines the queen trade. Duda wants the trade. Magnus went back, queen b7. Alright, now it's a better square for the queen. It's protecting d5, it's also protecting a7, and control of the c file. Rook fc1, rook fc8, h4, h6, bishop into e5, a6. Alright, in b3, b5. Maybe not so much with b5. Okay, the problem with b5 is it weakens the pawn after a4. A more solid approach could have been rook c6. Yeah. If you want to control the c file here, rook c6 and potentially rook ac8. Black has a control of the c file. Compare it to b5. With b5, Magnus has this a4, right? With the pin on the queen. After queen d7, takes on b5, takes. White has this important bishop f1 move. Yeah. It shifts to d3. King on g8 is not safe because there's no escape square on h7 and the control of the a file. The rook on c8 could not go to c2. Because the bishop transfers to d3 if you look at this, right? So no rook c2, no king h7. So white is slightly better here. g5 takes, rook a6 for Magnus, g4, rook to b6, king f8, king g2, rook a8, rook b7, rook b6, bishop e6. Magnus shows no improvement if he keeps playing the rook, so he decided to use his king f1. Anyway, it's the end game. You have to centralize and activate your king. The rook cannot go a2 here because of rook b8, right? The bishop is taking away that g7 square. Magnus also keeps his rook on d6. He doesn't want black to play f6 and king f7. Yeah, so the king cannot escape on the 8th rank. King e8, king e2. King d8, king d2. Maybe it was better to go king e3 than king d2. King d2, rook c8, rook to b7, rook a8, king c2. Nice tricky move. Magnus had to play bishop b5 because if you play king b3, there is check and then bishop c2 mate, right? So Magnus, after bishop b7, played bishop b5. Bishop takes, rook takes. He thought that he could take the pawn in d5, but king d7. You cannot capture d5, and the rook will be trapped with king c6. Yeah. So yes, we'll go back to b6. a1. Now it's black who is active. Okay, looking at this position, the king on c2 was not the best way to play, or maybe here from here. After king d7, but even better probably to go king e3 instead of going to d2 here. Again, they cannot play rook a1, right? If you go rook a1, for example, there's always rook b8. If you go bishop c8, there's bishop 5. So black cannot do anything over there. And if, let's say, you go rook c8, okay, you put the bishop to f4, rook goes to a8, put that bishop to b5, slowly but surely. Let's say rook c8, yeah, this bishop a6, rook a8, and then bishop b7. Yeah. Now the rook has to go a1, for example, and then bishop c6. Now you're threatening rook b8. This could have been a better way, yeah. Okay, but anyways, Magnus went for this one. Takes, thought about d5. And now the rook is active, bishop e3. Rook d1, bishop d2, rook f1, bishop e3. King c2, rook e1, rook a5. It was all equal, yeah. It was leading to a draw, and all of a sudden Duda blundered big time with bishop to g3. Well, it happens to the best players also. Yeah. We all make mistakes. Look at that. Magnus now has king d2. Double attack. Bishop on g3 is hanging. Rook on e1 is hanging. He thought that he had bishop c7, but after rook to d5, rook c5 is the same thing. Still hanging. Double attack. g3. Okay, the pawn will not promote. There's rook g5. Rook behind the pass pawn. So Magnus won game number 1. He only needs a draw in game number 2 to clinch the title. But Magnus has other plans. He fought for it, yeah. Showing that a world champion is also a fighter. And he's showing the other side of Magnus. First was strategic. First game was strategic. In the second game, he went for the tactical approach. Yes, the aggressive approach. It started with the Carlsen. Okay, b5. Interesting choice by Duda here, the fantasy variation of the Carlsen. And a smart move by Magnus e6. Yes. Okay, if you take on e4, takes on e4 for example, and you go e5, the problem with this line is that so there's knight f3. Okay, let's say you pin on g4, white goes c3, knight f6, bishop c4. Let's just say for example black plays b5. Now here's bishop takes f7, and the knight takes c5. So this is a very tricky line. And if let's say you go knight b d7 to protect e5, there's queen b3, attacking this one. If you go bishop h5, there's knight g5. This is not so easy. Queen e7 and queen takes b7. It should be winning for white. So this is smart for Magnus. Solid approach once again. Solid at first, yeah. After knight c3, knight f6, e5. Now it transposes into the French advance, yeah, with e5. Or also this classical French, knight f d7, knight ce2, c5, c3, knight c6, f4, bishop e7, knight f3 castles, h4, f6. This is typical in the French. Taking away e5, opening up the f-file. Now it's hard for white to put that king on e1 into safety, yeah, if the f-file is open. a3, a5, good move, knight g3, king b6, coupled by the queen move. Right? So the pressure on the dark square from a7 to g1, and the b2 pawn is also under attack, so the bishop on c1 cannot go e3. Bishop d3, right? Takes on d4. Now here Duda went for knight g5. Okay, the grid gift here does not work. Bishop takes a7, for example, the grid gift. Because now it just takes. If you play knight g5, king g8, you go queen h5, takes. h6 g5. Black has this counter sacrifice, so it takes an e5. So you cannot really push g6, yeah? It takes an e5, just takes. And if you push g6 now, knight d3. Black has enough material for the counter checkmate. If you go king e2, for example, there's rook f2. If you take the knight, queen b5, because if you go back, for example, to d1, queen b3 is mate, right? So you capture the knight, king b5 check. It takes queen c4. There's bishop c5 mate. If you go king e5, there's bishop f6, queen c6, or rook a6 is mate. Lonely king. So knight g5, nice move, but Magnus just calmly played h6. Everything is in control. Of course, you don't take the knight. If you take the knight, now the gift works. It's just a matter of sequencing. Now the Greek gift works here. If it takes on h7, for example, queen h5. Sorry, h6 g5. King g8. Instead of queen h5, g6. g6 first. Now, we'll just take on e5, right? Oops. No. There's rook h8. See the difference, yeah? King takes h8, queen h5, and after king g8, queen h7 is a mate. Magnus knows the dangers of the position. Played h6, nice move. He allowed knight takes e6, but he has a counter capture with knight d6 e5. It's opening the line for the bishop. And he has this intermediate check. After takes on d3, just bishop takes f8. Alright, black is exchanged down. But the activity, look at this. White is disorganized. You cannot castle here. If you castle, there's a discovered attack on the king. Yeah? Bishop e3 runs into d4. And if you go, let's say, king h2, the c takes b2. Yeah? So again, bishop e3, this is d4. So white cannot castle. He played bishop d2. He wants to castle queenside. Bishop g4. No castling, please, according to Magnus. Cannot. Queen d6 takes on b2. Duda thought he has a counterplay with rook to b1 and go for rook b8, rook takes b7, but Magnus was like, oops, I have rook e8. Your queen is an overworked piece. It's keeping an eye on b1. So if you take on e8, I will take on b1. Let's take a look at queen takes e8, queen takes b1. You go king f2, queen to b2. Right. How do you defend the bishop? Let's say you go knight f1, this d takes e3. Everything is safe. Bishop keeps an eye on e6, no checks. Rook is not doing anything on h1. Duda went for king f1. Magnus just captures d2. After the queen takes f4. King g1, this queen takes g3. Rook takes b7, one final trick. Queen f7 and queen takes f8. But Magnus is like, okay, I go knight e5. What do you do? If you, let's say, take on d4, for example, or if, let's just say rook to b8, threatening queen takes f8. This knight f3, yes. You can also go queen e1 and then knight f3, because if you take, queen f2 is mate. Alright, and here Magnus wins Meltwater Champions Tour Charity Cup, the second leg of the Champions Tour. Well, Magnus showed his all-around brilliance. Yeah, first game, strategic. Second game, tactical play. That's why he's world number one. That's why he's world champion. is multi-dimensional player. Yeah, all around. There's no, you cannot expose his weakness. Yeah. No weakness for this guy. Magnus is a real deal. Right, he keeps winning. Why is he winning? He just keeps winning. Winning is like breakfast for Magnus. Yeah. All right, so that was it. Magnus wins the Champions Tour, the second leg, and tomorrow will be round number 5 of the FIDE Grand Prix in Berlin, and we are hoping once again that Wesley will finally get his first win. Fingers crossed. Yeah, Wesley, come on, give us a win. Okay, I hope you like our presentation for today. Thank you for supporting our channel, Charles Smash Chess and Charles Smash Entertainment. We will continue to give you fun and exciting presentation in the days to come. This is Coach Oliver. Stay safe, everyone.